The chair, Mr. A.N. Malik, Vice President of the Energy and Resources Institute. Mr. Malik, kindly come over. Please put your hands together. We also have with us during the session, Ms. Michelle Burns, the Executive Vice President of Global Coffee, Social Impact and Sustainability, Starbucks. I'd request Michelle Burns to kindly come over. Dr. Harold Friedel, CEO of Green Leadership. Professor Gunter Pauli, economist, Blue Economy. Request Professor Pauli to come over, and of course, we'll have three presentations together after that. Mr. Mario Cerruti, Chief Institutional Relations and Sustainability Officer, Lavazza Group. Mr. Hernan Manson, Head Inclusive Agribusiness Systems, International Trade Center, ITC. And Mr. Andre DeMarco, Project Manager, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. So all these dignitaries will keep us engrossed for the next couple of hours, and you'll be definitely treated to some wonderful presentations. So please put your hands together. Let's welcome all the delegates, ladies and gentlemen, and hearty welcome to all of you. So in the interest of time, I will straight away hand over the session to the chair, Mr. A.N. Malik. It's all yours, sir. Over to you.
Hello. 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 Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fantastic group of people that we have on the stage around me, and it's indeed a very proud moment for me to chair and steer the conversations with these great people around the table. At TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute, the organization that I work with, we have always believed that taking the sustainable development policies, technologies, practices, experiences to the stakeholder matters the most. And I'm very proud that the India Coffee Board is hosting today the World Coffee Conference today, where we are bringing in the know-how from the dais to show to all of you on how how circular economy and regenerative agriculture can be a cornerstone for how we see things shaping today and also for tomorrow. The India Coffee Board has played an important role transitioning from only marketing for the marketing activities. It is today forging international global partnerships, relationships when it comes to trade. The India Coffee Board also invests a good amount of time and energy on undertaking research on plant improvement and use of biotechnology, crop management, and use of pesticide. And it is heartening to see that the topics of circular economy, regenerative agriculture are today here, where the India Coffee Board is getting to all of you these concepts, these principles, and how it can make a difference for all of you. It is an opportune moment to also look at the recent G20 now G21 communique that came out, and that has clearly reflected on how different pathways would be required for the countries across the globe to achieve the net zero emission. and it is not a one size fits all, but it will depend on the domestic conditions. It will depend on the development trajectory that each of the country represents. And I would strongly believe that post this 2 hour session, I'm sure you'll get a flavor of the experiences on how circular economy and regenerative agriculture would be the fulcrum on how this part of the world, the global south, would be looking at achieving the net zero emissions. Land management is a crucial factor when it comes to achieving India's national priorities as well as the international commitments. There are a set of sustainable development goals, right from SDG 1 on no poverty, looking at improved incomes and building resilience for the vulnerable people. SDG 2 for improving agricultural yields and food security. SDG 6 on enhancing water table and protect and restore water-related ecosystems. SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production, where we are looking at promoting equitable land rights and use of land resources. SDG 13 on climate action, on driving low emission farm practices, and SDG 15 on life on land, on ensuring conservation of terrestrial ecosystem. In addition to that, there are two nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. The one where 33% reduction of emission intensity, and the other of creating 2.5 billion metric tons of CO2 equivalent tune of carbon sinks. Land use strategies should be recognized with the interlinkages that it has on the multiple co-benefit areas: the human development, the climate change, as well as ecology conservation. For the Indian coffee sector, this becomes very central to the growth agenda for how the sector would be in the days to come. We all know that the agriculture contributes 24% of the total GHG emissions, and equally important is that 29% of India's land are degraded land. These numbers highlight the steep challenge that the agriculture sector faces in the country. There is scientific evidence that it would take around anywhere between 500 to 1,000 years for the topsoil to be rebuilt, and where we have seen abundance evidence that the soil erosion would lead to malpractices from the agriculture farming. It is important to also note that doubling the farmer's income could be undone by this growing ecological poverty. The Indian smallholder farmers constitute around 86% of the farmers in the country, with an average landholding of 1.8 hectares. They are vulnerable, and the panel today would also talk about how some of the expertise, the knowledge, the experiences can be brought out for the benefit of the Indian small coffee growers. Regenerative agricultural practices is a holistic and sustainable approach to farming and land management that focuses on restoring and improving the health of the ecosystem, soil, and biodiversity. Mainly the regenerative practices would include zero tillage, enhanced biodiversity, minimized chemical inputs, climate resilient varieties, integration of farming with livestock, increasing the water use efficiency, and utilizing the carbon that is sequestered, and thereafter look at opportunities to gain carbon financing. We have with us a stellar group of stellar group of speakers who would share their perspectives, their experiences with all of you, with a single converging point on how some of these principles can be beneficial. What are the kind of mechanisms that enables risk taking when it comes to implementing some of these new concepts. To begin with, I have the pleasure of inviting Ms. Michelle Burns. She is the Executive Vice President of Global Coffee Social Impact Sustainability at Starbucks. Michelle, drives the company's strategies to support a thriving business powered by thriving people for a thriving planet and communities, always with coffee at the core. She leads a global team of industry experts responsible for sourcing, developing, and roasting coffee, advancing coffee R&D, and innovative farming practices. She is contributing more broadly to Starbucks culture. She is the executive sponsor for Starbucks Indigenous Partner Network and serves on the board of Starbucks Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Michelle Burns.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Great. And if I may ask for some assistance, I don't believe I have a clicker. One second. How's everyone doing today? Great. Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. Wonderful. Well, it's great to be with all of you this morning. It's really quite an honor to be at the World Coffee Conference. I'll also mention it is incredible to be amongst peers, colleagues, producers, and as we all think together about some of the biggest problems around coffee. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention and encourage all of us to go over and see the championships that are underway. India has been an incredible host for us, for Starbucks. It is a market that we are so optimistic about the future. We have a few hundred stores here, and the possibility is endless. But going over and seeing our baristas who are competing on the stage to be the best in India is really quite a moment. So I just wanted to take a couple of moments, and if you'll indulge me, share a little bit about how we think about the future in regenerative agriculture and through our experiences at Starbucks. So with that, I'd like to start just really in grounding a bit on the why. It was mentioned in the comments. Coffee is at the core of this company, of Starbucks. We are over 50 years old. We have certainly grown from a company with a few stores out in Seattle, Washington in the US, where I am based, and grown to over 37,000 stores in 80 countries around the world. So it's been quite an experience. but the principle of it has always been based in the foundation of being a different kind of company. And our mission, I share this today because, like coffee, we are at an influx, and we are and have taken the opportunity to reimagine what the future looks like, even as a company that has enjoyed success and growth through customers and through farmers over the course of the last 50 years. So this context is around really what brings us all together is humanity and human connection, and with that, the limitless possibilities that we feel the connection of coffee has for us. But the reason I wanted to share this is I wanted to share something that I think demonstrates why we're all here, and that is our promises. And rooted in our promises, this is the first time as a company in 50 years that we have had promises. We've pulled together 3 of those promises that come into the center of who we are as a company at our best and what we stand for. And the base of that was so important to over 400,000 partners was for the first time to very overtly get the voice of the farmer right into our promise. So if you look at this and you see really a promise for farmers, a promise that we give more than we take, our environmental, and certainly how we contribute positively to this. Now, this has always been in the foundation of the company for many, many years, but this overt approach to this demonstrates to us that this is all integrated and all interdependent. So I share that just as a little bit of backdrop as I kind of take us through the journey about how we think about this. And it's really, how do we think from the first 10 feet to the last 10 feet and everything in between? And so that is really, as we're thinking, through the dynamics of the importance of sourcing from over 30 origin countries around the world in a way in which the diversity of our portfolio is so important to us, but the magnitude of the challenges, while the same, can vary around the world. So that is why for us, precision agronomy, thinking in a way of regenerative agriculture, has always been within us in how we've thought about working with producers, but has accelerated to an extreme pace as we face the challenges in the climate and look at what's ahead. But what I don't want to miss is the joy and what is behind all of this, and the producers that are in the room, and the coffee producers. We're here in service to you and to the 400,000 employees that we have, our partners. But probably more importantly, we have this privilege and opportunity to connect to the customers of coffee each and every day, over 100 million of them. So the whole entire value chain for us from beginning to end is really such an incredible part of what we do. Now, if I kind of take this, I wanted to spend a few moments and kind of orient this conversation around our farmer promise. And essentially, the best way I'll talk about this is a holistic approach. So the dynamics for us has to be the work that happens through our farmer support centers. So by way of example, we have 10 farmer support centers across the world. And the reason that we have that is so that we are there with best practices, working in and out with farmers every day, and taking that approach for how we can scale. We know the greatest opportunity for us sits in the soil with the fertilizer, sits in the management of the waste, and these 2 areas of component really just continue to centralize to us as we think broadly on the agronomy side, but it doesn't stop there. Now, many of you may know we have, for over 25 years, run CAFE practices, Coffee and Farmer Equity, as our program of how we approach working with the over 400,000 farmers around the world. Partnership has been with us from the beginning, in partnership with Conservation International in designing this program. This has been the baseline and continues to be the future for us. Built on over 200 different indexes of criteria that are in it. Really what's important is it's focused on 4 areas. 1, economic transparency. 2, quality. 3, the environment. And 4, the social aspects. Now, we're all talking about that today and in the environment in the current world. 25 years ago, that was much less of a conversation. So when I talk about this magnitude of being integrated and working in this manner, we know ethical sourcing, specialty coffee in the Arabica sector will be critical to us. But again, how we carry that, and what is the work that we do in partnership with farmers. And so we know it's more, it's income diversification, examples for us when we are looking and seeing secondary income, biodiversity and the benefits of that in these environments, research and development. The whole mix of this is not one piece. It has to have quality as the underlying layer, but it unequivocally has to have the regenerative agriculture in that basis that we can scale to allow all of us to prosper. The reason we do this is no surprise for any and all of us, right? Better farming practices equals better productivity and takes us toward that path of better farmer and producer incomes. So we stay committed to that as we continue to grow. Only sourcing 3% of the world's coffee, we know the importance that our work doesn't happen alone. It has to happen in partnership. So over time, we have always looked in a way to say where and how can we be part of the solution together, and it only can happen in that way that we think about all of the different partnerships that are there, whether it be helping in something like our Global Farmer Fund, which is a $100 million fund that we have in place to get small loans into farmers' hands through our partners at Root Capital doing a lot of that work for us. The point again being, none of these are one stop, one solution. It's the holistic aspect of all that we do that we find so critically important and at the baseline of everything when we talk about both the regeneration and certainly as we talk about the need and the opportunity for a circular economy. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't sort of talk about the magnitude of coffee at our core. There's a reason that it's the very first thing in the company. We are not a beverage company, we are a Starbucks coffee company. The value and the importance that we have put out has, of course, put for us a commitment to the public around reducing our footprint, our carbon footprint, as well as water reduction by 50% in both areas by 2030. And it's not coffee alone, though. So I just wanted to give a sense of, as we all have our different roles in the industry and in the sector, and certainly the primary focus here today is on coffee from the production side and the investment side, certainly, and that is the case. We also know that we have a role as such a conduit to the consumer and to the customer to really make sure that we are making the right investments for the impact on things like waste. And you think about what is iconic in a Starbucks store, it's that cup. So imagining a future with less waste, reusable, recyclable, reduction, it all fits into this holistic piece for us. And then much of where you see it, and the customer will see it, is in the stores. So not just the story of the first 10 feet that happens and the magnitude of the importance of what we bring forward around coffee, but similarly, how do we reduce waste in the equipment that we all see and that we're a part of? How do we think in ways and manners in which the recycling, circularity around the globe, which are really complex problems, are all put in place? So we have a long way to go, certainly, but we feel that we are on the right path, and again, only happening through partnerships. Now, if I kind of bring this around a little bit to the piece of, we talked about farmer support centers, but our hub, the center for us, has been over the last decade our research and development center in Costa Rica, Hacienda Alsacia. Over 200 hectares there. This is our primary home where the innovation, the circularity, the fertilizer, the dynamics, the sampling, a very important tree breeding program where we're looking in climate-resistant trees. We're just introducing this week 6 new varietals that are out public. And we do this all, importantly, in an open source mechanism. So if there's anything I'd leave you with is this context of, we don't believe that we can have the benefit and the impact for producers, for their families and communities, and for the industry as a whole if we don't do this in partnership and share it with others. So you can see the farm at the front, at the top. It's a beautiful farm like many of you have seen all over the world. And we've just introduced, in addition to that, Sustainable Learning and Innovation Center. And that's another approach where we're inviting all in the sector to come with us to solve some of the biggest problems, certainly in coffee, but more broadly on the social and economic side as well. So a lot to continue to look toward. We're a couple of years away from that. But this is a beacon that not just is for the research and development, but for all of us in the future and growth of coffee. It's also where we center for our partners, our employees, and we invite them to come and learn and experience and have that ability to understand the work of a farmer, the problems and the challenges that we're all working to adapt and mitigate, which I think was a great point earlier, in a way that is productive for all. So research and development hub, open source, it all kind of fits into the mix for us. And maybe the last place that I'll leave this, because as I think through all of this and we talk about the social side of this, is the magnitude of which these partnerships allow incredible things to happen. I was recently in West Java with Mercy Corps, and you see firsthand where loans that we put into place are building secondary incomes and enabling women and their families. A lot of investment. We've always been strong in how we think about women and girls' empowerment. I don't think there's ever been a more important time to get women's voices, not just into coffee, and there's support there, but much more broadly across the business environment. So amazing work that goes on each and every day, because we know that our responsibility is certainly to ensure that there's a future of coffee for all, but through that, it has to ensure that there's an experience for the customer each and every day that allows all of us to continue to have the outlets that are necessary and important for us to be able to continue to lift up the special, unbelievable, passionate, important piece of what is coffee and the role that it has around the world. So with that, I would just like to say thank you so much. We've hit on a few of the different areas in which we have put our approach in. But if I leave you with something, it's just that importance that these aren't one solutions. This is a holistic, open source environment for all of us to continue to consider and be a part of the future. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Michelle. Your talk on holistic support to the farmers, to their families, on soil protection, on farming, and economic prosperity is always inspiring to hear. We move to our second speaker, Dr. Harald Fredl, the CEO of Green Leadership. Harald has been serving with the Austrian Minister of Climate as a circular economy accelerator in 2021 and 2022. Prior to joining the circular economy in 2017, Harald spent 5 years in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar, where he co-founded the Impact Hub Myanmar and was the managing director of a renewable energy company. And before that, he was with the United Nations in New York and advising the office of the UN Secretary General. Harald today would be talking to us on circular economy and solutions for the agriculture sector and lessons for the coffee sector. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Harald Fredl.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Michelle, for also bringing the topic up, where the journey has gone in the last years. I remember about 4 years ago, I got a call from the company that produces all your coffee cups. And they asked me, and I was then in Amsterdam, and they asked me, so how can we produce a circular coffee cup? And I realized how far the journey has come over the last 4 years in this sector and in many other sectors. And I'm also happy that Professor Pauli is here, because he reminded us yesterday, it's nice where we have come, and it's not enough. So I think it's good to pat each other on the shoulders. It's fantastic that you're all here. And the only way, I think, how we can be accountable to each other and say we have made a successful conference is to say we are all embarking on action around circular economy and regeneration. So good morning to all of you. Thank you for listening to this esteemed panel and all the people who have come. And I invite you to really collaborate on solutions for the future together. And I was thinking about the minister, Her Excellency, who was standing here yesterday, and giving a flamboyant speech about Green India and what the government is doing. And I think I wish sometimes a minister in Europe will be as passionately speaking about the circular economy and regeneration. And he was talking, and I've written it down for myself, about the concept you have here in India about Fenty Hui coffee. I hope I pronounced this correctly. And he said it's when you start to mix the milk with the coffee powder together, and then something beautiful appears and you really can enjoy then the product of a new mix. And I thought it's a bit symbolic what I hope this conference is, that you mix up new ideas, that you come up with new partnerships and new allies. It's a piece of knowledge and I'm going to bring back to Europe and where I'm working, so we can make a lot of new alchemy happen and new collaborations that can inspire a new future. And I think we need actually alchemization and some miracles so we can still make the turn towards a better future. I have put on the slide here at the beginning, we did a research a couple of years ago how circular actually is the world economy, or most countries. And the shocking figure that came up was the world is only 7% circular, which means if you are an eternal positivist or an activist like myself, we have more than 90% room to improve. 90% is the way or the amount of the resources we are wasting every single year. The interesting thing is the circular economy has become a new paradigm. Only last week I was discussing circular cement. It's now a very important paradigm in the cement industry. We're discussing circular cars, how we can bring circularity to bikes. I also discussed circular diapers last week. So how we can actually revolutionize the baby industry, the food industry, the garment industry, and why I chose to be somebody who tries to implement and focus on action in the circular economy. It is because we are going beyond the discussion of concepts and we are focusing on action. In the year 2023, if you take one thing away, the circular economy is giving you in your organization, in your company, in your city, in your region, or in your country, a very clear roadmap on how you can implement action. Let's not talk 80% and act 20%, but let's turn this around as a new paradigm for 2023 and beyond. Let's act 80% and chat 20%. So I have been doing this, as a esteemed chair said, as a circular economy ambassador for my own country. I have worked in many industries with hundreds of startups and business leaders, and always with a focus on driving action. This morning, we discussed with the global leaders of the industry on the private and public side, and it's something I've been writing about online, which became viral. Let's just understand what we are talking about. The linear economy is still what we are functioning in. It's still the scheme of work that many companies and countries are set up to work. But we are trying to move to the rest. Yes, a recycling industry in the coffee industry is super important, and I see when I read the reports of certain company strategies, that's always the first target and focus. Let's try to move from a linear model at least into recycling the waste that we are producing. And I applaud everybody who is doing this truly. It's not a judgment. But in this day and age, in this year 2023, we have to focus on the next step. We have to implement the next step, and this is a circular and regenerative paradigm. I find it amazing that the topic of this conference, of India as a host country of the ICO and with its partners, says we want to bring sustainability through circular economy and through regeneration. That's what we see when we enter this conference. These are big topics, and you're very brave. You have embarked them, you're a pioneer, but let's accelerate together. So a circular economy is embracing everything around collaboration, new business models, data to close loops, because we are trying to avoid waste altogether. Waste should be a word that we don't use anymore, but we use and focus on resources. Waste in that process can always be gold, an ingredient, a useful resource in a second process. You never know, you just have to find the right partner. So let's phase out everything that is linear, because it has served us to that moment, and it has produced a lot of negative consequences on the environmental side, on the social side, but also, me being an economist, on the economic side. So we have, as Günther also said yesterday, we're losing out on a lot of potential. So the coffee industry would be well advised not to only look at how you can drink coffee, but how you can use coffee in all different ways. I told you you're not alone. Every industry I work with says we're in a very difficult time right now. And that's true. The coffee industry is facing a lot of challenges, and so is the cement industry, so is the aviation industry, so is the shipping industry, so is the metal industry, so is the chemical industry. It's the same story everywhere. And you have fantastic partners with ITC, with UNIDO, the UN agencies, all the civil society organizations and NGOs that are willing to engage with you on a pathway of change. And you know what I like about circularity? It's not about doing a little bit better or a little bit less bad. We want to do fundamentally better. And sustainability in circular economy is a very selfish choice. If we do that, you are future-proofing your company. That's why, and I'm putting up a couple of the headlines of the last weeks, companies in the cement sector, big CEOs say now circular economy is the biggest business opportunity of our times. Companies like Google are running accelerators specific for the circular economy. And what you hear out of Silicon Valley is that it has been the accelerator with the biggest interest of any accelerator Google has been running. There are African countries putting hundreds of millions of dollars now in making the circular economy a reality. And I know India has been very active about shaping a vision around that. So let's really shape that vision with the agenda, with the topics, and with the stakeholders that are already working on it here in the coffee sector. This is, and you will find it online, the impact ladder for circular economy. Because often we are faced and we are confronted, and experts ask us, what should we focus on? Is it recycling? Is it reducing the input? Or is it that we are using the materials at the longest time possible? And all of these strategies we need. All of them we need to reduce the negative impacts we have seen environmentally and socially, and to come up with the new paradigms for the future. Why? Because the system and the policies will change dramatically over the next years. I liked, and looking at the colleague from Eurobarometer that is sitting in the audience who presented his facts last evening, the coffee sector is seeing a lot of growth. I was struck by the fact that there are as many coffee shops now in China than there are in India. And the coffee industry is an industry that has a lot of trust because people want to continue to invest in it. A research agency called Gartner says that 2029, which is only 5 to 6 years away, all supply chains globally will have to be circular. Why? Because policy-wise, the circular economy will be the only economy that is allowed. There will be no more policies that allows waste. As societies, we can't afford it anymore. So my advice, let's start now to embrace that concept fast. Let's enable and let's embrace the circular business models that we see upcoming everywhere. The fact that product as a service has been embraced and has been documented as $1 billion business opportunity should give us a lot of optimism that we can bring about the change. The sharing economy as a new paradigm for the new generation that is enabling a consumerism of the future. That we should truly design products that last for a long time and are trained and are there to be repaired. And definitely at the end of the life cycle, not use any resource. As I said before, waste should be a word that we leave in the 2010s, that we should at least leave in the year 2022 and we don't use anymore. I was asked to present to you a couple of lessons learned of different sectors that have embarked on the journey of a circular economy. And I want to leave you in my last minutes of my time with 5 circular lessons that I think the coffee sector could learn and accelerate it with, not to repeat the mistakes we have seen in other sectors that was holding us back. 1, the circular economy is not a topic that you are burying in your sustainability team. In many C-level discussions, it has become a strategic conversation on how you run your company. It's a new paradigm of management. And if we are embracing it, and if, as a CEO said, you can include it and upgrade your operating system of your company and make it circular, 1 + 1 can become 7. How? By embracing not only financial gains, but by pricing in the social and the ecological and economic gains you are bringing to society. A lot of the possibilities will be created by new laws that will come and it will support the change. So, lesson learned, number 1, it is about bringing fundamental change in your company and into your business. And we have to look at this also visually as bringing a new vision forward so you can embrace the stakeholders into that topic. So stakeholder management, number 2, is the lesson learned that is necessary. Invest in stakeholder management. Number 3, if you are embracing the fact that there is no waste, you can unlock new values. We heard it yesterday, a coffee is not only there to drink. You can wear coffee, you can use it for pesticides, and the idea in your design company or in your design units of your companies and organization can be on how first you add value to your product. Here that's called the value hill. How you can avoid that the product is losing value after its first time of use. How you can use coffee as long as possible, how you can keep it at its highest value as long as possible. I like the challenge we were put to yesterday. Go beyond coffee as a drink, a starting point of how you design your products in the next years. Lesson number 4, embrace the new consumerism that is coming up. We heard yesterday there are going to be new products that will come to the market. Coffee will be part of them. How can you create with your new customers, with your young customers, with the new data that is available, the drinks of the future? How can better data serve us to close loops along the supply chain globally, in your company, in the country where you operate, and with the stakeholders that you are working with? And number 5, if the fashion industry can do it, circular hubs are now coming up and being established, for example, by Gucci in Italy or in Latin America, where the fashion industry is coming together and embracing together a new way of operating. Why can't the coffee industry do that? And I give you a little insight, because some of the key and big players came to us and said, we're talking about Zara, and we're talking about C&A, and we're talking about H&M, and they all said and acknowledged, we can't solve the problem alone. So our answer is would you be open to talk behind closed doors in a trusted place, how we can solve the root causes together? And finally, when we opened up a trusted conversation behind closed doors, we started to actually address the topics that we are aiming for solving and changing in a circular economy. So I invite you to embrace and think about a couple of these lessons learned, so we can bring accelerated change to the coffee industry that I believe can be truly spearheading the change we need to see around circularity and regeneration in the next years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harald, for igniting all our minds to say that waste is a term of yesterday, and to embrace embrace the circular business model, to translate our know-how to show how on how if the fashion industry can embrace circular hubs, so can the coffee sector. Having heard Harald talk about some of the lessons from the other sectors, and looking at the implications on the coffee sector, we would now like to invite Mr. Mario Cerruti. He's the Chief Institutional Relations and Sustainability Officer of Lavazza, and just like Harald talked about the specifics of the coffee sector, Mario brings in great experience of having worked in Lavazza since 1986, where he's currently the Chief Institutional Relation and Sustainability Officer and Secretary of the Lavazza Foundation. He has been the President of the European Coffee Federation from 2004 to 2007, and again for the second term, 2017 to 2020. He's currently the President of the Italian Coffee Committee, the association, which is the association of the large Italian coffee companies, and also member of the board for the Institute of Scientific Information on Coffee. He is also a board member of the International Coffee Partners and World Coffee Research. Mario, we would like to hear from you the circular economy in coffee, pretty much building on what Harald spoke about, and why would you believe that there is a need for creating more knowledge, more insights for the coffee sector? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mario Cerruti.
Thank you very much. Well, let me start saying that today it's a nice day. It's a nice day because I'm here with all of you, and I'm particularly happy and pleased that I've been invited, and very happy to be here. I also would like to say that there is another very good reason for being happy, and the fact that our friend Gunther Pauli asked me to speak after, and to speak after him actually is almost a suicide. So thank you very much, Gunther, for changing the sequence. And of course you will hear from him very interesting things. But the reason we are here today is because we, together with some friends, and I will introduce them later, we are presenting an idea, an initiative, an activity that we just set up. It took a little bit of time to get organized, and we thought that this would be the perfect occasion to show you. The activity is called the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee, and the idea is to work, and I will explain you in some quick details in a second, to work in the intersection between two very important issues. One is coffee, of course, and we all depend from coffee in one way or the other one. At least I depend on coffee not only because I work for a coffee company, but because I like to drink coffee every day in a good quantity. And of course, the other good reason is because the circular economy, as already been said, is getting more and more important as a concept. And so the idea is basically to work in the intersection of these two areas. I don't know what is the director, but there should be a presentation if you would like to start, just to quickly guide our conversation. I don't, do we, oh, here it is, perfect, thank you very much. So, can we move? Here is just the presentation, Center for Circular Economy in Coffee, and you see, but we will explain a bit later, the starting partners, the founding partners involved. Can you, yes, this one? Yes. Okay, so I'm not really reading everything because you will have the presentation in the documentation, so if you have an interest you can go into additional details. But basically this is Torino, is our city, and is where the center is based. Okay, it sounds a bit silly to repeat in a naive way what has been said in a much more, let's say, in professional way, but basically the idea is really to move from linear to circular, which has, said, already been explained, but the idea is really to do something to accelerate this transition. The transition is going already, is in us, is in the business. It's maybe for 29 it will be 100% of our business, but the point is that is something that we already are experiencing every day more and more. And so the idea of this center is really to accelerate this movement. The activities that the center is going to do, they are basically these four areas that you see, but all of them in a way concentrate into one core idea that I'm going to explain you. The idea is that there are around the world many issues of activities, of projects, of ideas, of things. This one is one example that are in some way connected with coffee and the circular economy that are working or maybe not working. And so the idea is really to put together the know-how, to put together in one single place all the information about the good and the bad experiences and make this global know-how available for everybody. So in a way, it could be a positive incentive to follow something that has been done successfully in some other place, or maybe even to take some example that didn't really work well in a particular environment, in a particular place, in a particular scenario, and do the necessary change to make it working. And so as all the human activities, there is a learning curve, no? You know that you start, you don't know, and then you start learning, and instead of making 10 mistakes the first day, we do 9, 8, and so on and so forth. So the idea of this accelerator is in a way to make the first part of the learning curve, in a way, let's say, together, and so avoiding and making more quick to get the results, avoiding mistakes. Here you can see some of the partners. One is the one that I represent, is the Lavazza Foundation, and I just would like to underline the fact that this is the Lavazza Foundation, not the company, and the reason is to underline the not-for-profit approach of the initiative. And then we have a couple of universities that are named here, both coming from Torino, a technical and a more humanistic, food-related university. We have the International Coffee Organization, which is actually the, let's say, the big house where we all are. And then we have the International Trade Center and UNIDO, and our two friends there will explain later. We decided to have, as you can see, a very concentrated group of partners, but representing the private, the academic, and the public interest. And we decided to start quickly, and that's why we didn't lose too much time in having more starting partners, because we wanted to start quickly. But one point that I really want to clarify right away is that the exercise, the center, is for everybody. So everybody is welcome to participate, to provide putting information or to get information, and we will explain a bit later the role of the various players. For example, from the coffee grower point of view, being at the level of a single grower or extensionist or cooperative or association, etc., the center wishes to be a place, as I said before, where you can get information on something that you might want to do, or something that you might just be looking for ideas. Now, what do I do with this product that today I discard? Maybe there is a way to make it again almost a raw material, no? A starting material for another process, like could be this one again. So those are some of the ideas, but the coffee growers can also be that part of the chain, can also be an important supplier of initiatives, of idea, or something that has been made and experimented and it works. So why not sharing it with everybody else in the world in the coffee sector? The second group is strategic partners, and the strategic partners can be all, say, basically everybody that has an interest in the coffee sector from the medium long-term point of view. We have research center, academia, and in our view they are particularly important because those are the ones that are asked to, in a way, to make a first judgment on a proposal, on something, and they should say, yes, this is a good idea to pass it on, and the clear objective is to guarantee a certain level of quality of the information that are shared. And then we have the coffee roasters that, of course, have the idea the interest to use all possible ideas in terms of circular economy during the whole process. Here we didn't mention, but it's also very important, all the possible type of users, from the bar B2B owners to the normal housewives and family consumption people. Here is just a visual model how the platform will work. As you can see, we have in the big rounded cycle, we have indicated some of the major phases, but again, the idea is really the full value chain and logistic chain from basically I would say from the small plant, from the seeds up to the end when the final consumer has got the coffee from the beverage point of view, but then there are all the other possible uses. And every phase is basically kind of a tree, because for every step there are type of solutions and then single solution to enlarge. So as you can imagine, is virtually an endless collection of points of issue, and each one can be developed depending on the type of issue we are talking about. Can be developed with video, with audio, with the numbers, with everything that is useful to be explained and adopted by the interested party. Here you can see, for example, clicking on one of those, you will get a card, and this is an example, for example, of using the coffee ask to build panels, to build houses. And this is one of the N possible solutions. There is another important use that we wanted to do of the center, and is basically to link together people, organization, subjects that have a product and somebody that may look for that product. So, for example, I do have coffee skin out of my roasting process, and so maybe I don't have any solution. I don't know what to do. I don't even want to do. I have other things to take care of. And so I can put the information that I am available to give this material or to sell it or whatever it is. And maybe somebody else is actually looking for that as a starting material for his own process. So a kind of, again, knowledge platform where the knowledge here is the availability or the request of a particular material in the coffee process. And then this is also one of the very important, let's say, developments is of the center is also to try to get some funds to develop projects in order to put in practice some of the learning, some of the best cases from the point of view of coffee and circular economy. One we quoted here, is already on its way, and is a project with UNIDO and partially funded by the Italian government to really develop a fully fledged project in order to apply the knowledge of the circularity and coffee point of view. With this, we basically finish, and this is really the dream that we have, is to reach that 99.9%. So don't even want to get the 100%. So that is enough. 99.5 is enough of circular economy in coffee. It's important that we all together have a similar dream in order to make it true. So that's why we say, okay, we have a dream, do we? And this is really the answer we should give all together to this question. Here is the slide with all the logos of the participant, and I would like on this slide to pass the microphone, the virtual microphone to Hernan of International Trade Center that will give you additional details. Thank you very much.
Good morning, bonjour, bon dia, buenos dias. Thank you to the government of India, to the Coffee Board, to ICO, Executive Director Vanucia Nogueira, for the invitation. It is a pleasure for us, the International Trade Center, to be part of this forum, and we're very proud partners of the Center for Circular Economy, together with ICO, Lavazza Foundation, Politecnico de Milano, the Torino and UNIDO, universities, private sector, international organizations, producers, value chain operators, corporates, all working together. Now, I also want to thank the India Coffee Board for the invitation. Among you here today, there are 20 plus entrepreneurs from Africa and Brazil who actually were received by the Indian private sector, by the Coffee Board, and visited what is being implemented on the ground by the private sector. Circular economy in India, in practice, in the coffee growing areas, in the SMEs, and exchange. They also brought cases and best practices of what they are doing in their respective companies. And this, in a nutshell, is one of the important contributions and activities of the Center for Circular Economy. Entrepreneurs learning from entrepreneurs, sharing, seeing the business model, the business opportunity, replicating and adapting. So one of the panelists spoke about, let's talk less, let's act more. I think we are in this process, but we need to do it together. I also want to share that through the ITC and the different partners here today, there is a coffee network. Now, it has a reach of 10,000 stakeholders, and with ICO, we even have a reach of thousands and thousands and thousands more of stakeholders. Now, when we ask the question to the coffee network, do you know about circular economy? Do you apply circular economy? And there was a much more thorough survey with several questions attached to it. Only 34% of the respondents, again, SMEs, farmer organizations, private sector, policymakers, institutions, only 34% of the respondents said they had an idea, and even much less said they put it into practice. So this also clearly shows the need not only to share information, share practices. I like the point, Mario, what fails and what works, right? It is also very important to adapt. It's also very important to generate the business case so that the companies can actually see the business incentive, right? And when I say companies, I'm also talking about farm organizations, SMEs, at the origin, but also close to consumption, and they can actually pursue that business case. At the same time, the feedback we receive is that within the coffee industry, within the coffee value chain, and we heard from FAO yesterday, but we also hear from the producer organizations, there is still cases of food insecurity, not across all areas and countries, but across some of the segments that are actually in coffee production. And we need to acknowledge that. We also hear that there is a need for additional incomes, profit. We hear that there is a quest and a need to add value. And again, I refer to a lot of the colleagues here from Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, the Pacific. Value addition and income diversification with coffee and also with associated business products and crops is an opportunity. And finally, we also hear about climate change, adapting, making front to that, mitigating the impact. And of course, we hear, and this is a message that comes very strongly, about being more efficient and lowering the cost of production in coffee. Circular economy, the kind of activity that we are sharing and that you have already implemented, many of you are doing this in your companies, in your value chain, is an opportunity to achieve all of those. Food security, additional incomes, value addition, more efficient collaboration, and of course, efficient coffee industry that works for all. And this is why, as the ITC, we partner with all of you, and this is why we are here today. I also want to make emphasis to the fact that we can talk here, but behind each of the different products, ideas, innovations, there is an entrepreneur there is a taxpayer that is actually providing funds through the tax so that we can provide and promote and partner for development. I want to show something that comes from West Africa, from Ghana. This is a coffee roaster that is working with several hundreds of coffee farmers. Yes, you hear it right, in Ghana with Robusta. And they are doing, additionally to their coffee business, for the local market, for the export market, coffee detox scrub, cosmetics, right? And you must say, oh, this is a very simple product, how do we scale? But I would say, this is a very good start. This is a way of additional incomes of using byproducts of coffee. And I invite you to interact with the different entrepreneurs here present, because they are already doing, they're not waiting for the center. They're not waiting for us in development. They are already doing all of this. The question is how we partner, all of us, to provide scale, so that it's not 1 or 10 companies, but the thousands of companies that come up with these products. SMEs, farmers, agripreneurs are essential. Youth, in particular, plays a key role, and we must also look into this as one of the activities of the center. Now, it is not enough, right? And here comes also the need for public sector. Policies are extremely important, and we have here a lot of very good examples from the different governments, but also the European Union. Policies are really important to promote and incentivize the adoption of circular economy. And so are institutions, because a lot of the learning happens between entrepreneurs, but also happens because you have national support institutions, research and development that partner with the private sector to do that. So we must not forget, and we must jointly partner and support institutions, private sector, as well as the policymakers. Another point is, we talk about win-win. I hear it. All the different panelists here today says, circular economy will make your life better. Your business, environment, climate, it will make your things better. But win-win starts with the producer. And this is a very important point, right? There will be little adoption, there will be little scale if we don't really think about that. So how can we collaborate together through the center, through the different initiatives that all of you are doing in order to respond to some of the needs of the producer, right? And this is the key question. Another point which I've heard, yes, all of this is very good. We can have the research, we can have the technologies, we can have the partnerships, but where is the finance and investment? And again, finance for trade, finance for inputs, is it available, right? Where is the finance and investment for building the circular economy? Whether you're talking about climate adaptation, regenerative systems, or product development. And I think this is a very important question, and we must also partner with the financial sector so that we can actually put everything together and respond to those business opportunities. But the finance must be having scale, it must also be inclusive. So this is key. Particularly, some of the challenges are also about the logistics. From the findings of the Circular Economy Center, it is clear that one of the biggest challenges is how do we get the waste or the byproducts to the place where they can be processed, whether it is in the same cooperative or abroad. So with that, I would like to thank you all. It is a privilege and a pleasure for us to be part of this. I would also like to thank our partners and donors, the European Union, the ACP Secretariat, being present here today, that have made possible the participation of the entrepreneurs from Africa, Brazil, Latin America, and the sharing with India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Mr. Harnden Masson, who manages the Inclusive Agribusiness Program of the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. We'll from the center's perspective, we will have Mr. Andre DeMarco. Is the project manager representing UNIDO. He currently manages the UNIDO's technical assistance projects in the African continent for agro value chain development with a specialization on the coffee sector. He is shaping public-private partnership programs as part of the UNIDO partnership manager. He also works for a number of international public and private stakeholders. Andre, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, first of all, allow me to thank all of you and the WCC organizers for enabling such an intense dialogue around the circular economy. UNIDO's strategies in response to climate breakdown is maximizing synergies with partners engaged in other priority areas such as energy, agribusiness development, and food security. But biodiversity and regeneration, of course, and naturally, circular economy. An economy achieving full circularity is an ideal. It enables stakeholders to aim high when setting their visions, priorities, and strategies for activating circular practices within their industries and societies for a better future. UNIDO defines a circular economy as an industrial economy that routes materials, parts, and products back into use several times and creates more value and less waste. It is an alternative in which value is maintained for as long as possible. Products are designed to last, and the generation of waste is minimized. For a business and a value chain perspective, the circular economy is not only environmentally and socially beneficial, but it is also economic beneficiary. It also provides multiple economic opportunities. UNIDO is a champion within the UN system in piloting technical cooperation programs in circular economy. Many UNIDO projects already address various building blocks of a circular economy. Some projects support resource efficient and cleaner manufacturing of products. Others help to develop safe and easy to recycle products with longer lifetimes. And still others deal with the regeneration of resources at the start and at the end of the product life. Ladies and gentlemen, UNIDO sees innovation as a key to progress toward circularity through an integrated approach based on technology transfer and capacity building, access to finance and impact investments, and climate resilience and regenerative practices. But how to do that? In this context, UNIDO encourages multi-stakeholders engagements and public-private partnerships. UNIDO strongly believes that public-private partnerships are conducive to coffee value chain integration, especially to engine innovative solutions for implementing the 2030 development agenda. UNIDO works in partnership to improve sustainable value chain operations and build a circular economy. So today, UNIDO has merged private sector action and government support within its initiative, showing strong complementarity. In this context, the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee is a clear example of this public-private partnership potential. UNIDO is proud to be part of the alliance for the establishment of this center. For UNIDO, the center does not represent a platform for information sharing only. It represents the real engine for the definition of future technical cooperation projects. In this context, and thanks to the financial supports provided by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Development Cooperation, UNIDO has immediately translated this initiative into concrete action by providing the center with the necessary resources and expertise to start up technical programs in pilot countries. The project will also allow the center to create an international knowledge network aimed at promoting sustainable coffee supply chain and circularity to a public-private partnership approach. Moreover, UNIDO will mobilize additional resources in producing countries for facilitating impact investments toward circular and regenerative solutions. A concrete example is represented by the coffee credit line, the first of its kind in the African continent, which is going to be established in Ethiopia. Allow me to conclude by referring to yesterday's statement of His Excellency the Minister of Industry and Commerce of India, which sounds particularly appropriate to this session. There is one world, one family, and one future. Let's work together for a more inclusive, more sustainable, and more circular future in the coffee sector as well. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Andre. Mario, I understand that there is an announcement that you would like to make, so over to you.
Yes, can I? Well, basically, we want to take this moment together with all of you to officially launch the center. The center is open to everybody. There will be this small leaflet available if you wanted to have a look. For sure, here is everything explained much better than what I did before, and so it will be there for you to have a look, and please participate. As we said, we have a dream all together. We can make it true. And now we want to take this occasion together with all of you to do an official signing for the partnerships that are behind the center, and the idea to do it together with such an important group like you are in a very important producing country like India is really to underline the let's say the most let's say seriousness that we put into this activity, and the fact that we wanted to make it for the whole coffee industry. So thank you very much. Gerardo, please. And who? You. Oh, yes, of course. Vanusia, please. Vanusia, dear. Eh? Oh, yeah. Go there, please. Where is he? Aziz? Oh, yes, it is. Okay. Ci mettiamo qui? Okay, so we put here, we wanted to take a picture all together. Line with the glass that I was showing before, which is very interesting, and thank you very much for the gift. I just want to underline that the paper that we printed, this one is paper with coffee residual, so it's an example of circularity. And since we are waiting, should I? Okay, no, because we wanted to make the official sign of the memorandum and the joint declaration between UNIDO and the Lavazza Foundation. Let me just take this occasion to thank all the people that have really actively and longly worked for making all of this happen. So thank you for all of you. Thank you, Dario. Thank you, Catherine. Well, everybody, sorry for not mentioning all of you. I will forget somebody, so I better not to take this risk. Okay.
Yeah, at this juncture, I would like to call upon Mr. Gerardo, Head of Operations of ICO. Kindly come over, sir. Mr. Gerardo, please put your hands together for Mr. Gerardo.
I think the announcement has already been done. We just witnessed this agreement between UNIDO and the Lavazza Foundation. A lot of things are happening in Bangalore. I'd like to just have an additional information to share.
Sorry. Only one sentence from my side. I'm now 61 years old and I decided I only sign memorandum if there is a concrete action. And I know we will start with concrete action. So thank you once more.
As you have seen, Gunther is not of many words, but thank you very, very much.
Just one additional clarification. The memorandum of understanding between the Center for Circular Economy and Coffee, the International Trade Center and the International Coffee Organizations will be signed after this will be submitted to the International Coffee Council on Thursday. So from a formal point of view, the MOU between the Center, the ICO and the ITC will be signed after the International Coffee Council will give the blessing, and this will happen this week. And after that, the plan is to be signed by the three parties at the COP29 in Dubai. With this, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's great, and exciting news, new developments that have happened as part of the World Coffee Conference that all of us are so proud about. We saved the best for the last, and just like we heard about how the Center for circular economy in coffee would engage with academia, with the private sector, with the public sector, with global stakeholders, It does, as part of its, formative years, and as it grows, the sphere of influence, the inform and engage, would be, would be things that all of us would be participating and experiencing. I take this moment to introduce to our, to the brightest star today on the stage, Professor Gunter Pauli. And before, many of these things began, and he has been an ambassador that would deal with skeptics every now and then. Very early in the 80s, during a major economic crisis, he led a think tank to identify high growth sector service companies in Europe. In 1990s, he created a think tank to prepare for the Kyoto Protocol after building and operating the first green factory that applied the zero emissions concept, popularly known as ZERI. Professor Pauli also set out to accelerate the solutions that he describes in his landmark book, The Blue Economy, a Club of Rome report translated into more than 50 languages. All of us have known, have heard Professor Pauli, talk about how biomimicry, how 3D farming can revolutionize the way we think, act, eat, and do things. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Gunter Pauli.
Is it working? Is it working? Yeah, it's working. I'm going to take this table here. It's much better. May I? I'm a bit closer to you. I don't like to look like a priest speaking from the pulpit. And my sorry that I show you my back. My apologies. You know what I like about the center that was just set up is that the decision making was very fast. Why was the decision making fast? Because the organization that is really leading it is Lavazza, and Lavazza is a family company. Families decide. And I know that the strong leadership in Lavazza is Francesca Lavazza. Francesca, who's leading your branding, your marketing. And what we need is not only decisions, we need decisions that are executed. But before we're looking at the execution, ladies and gentlemen, take a step back and look at the philosophy and look at the reality. The only species living on Earth capable of making waste is the human species. We're the only ones who are so smart we can make something no one wants. Come on. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. We're supposed to be the intelligent one, and we're actually generating waste. We're generating so much waste that we have to have dedicated companies who do nothing but dealing with waste. In nature, no one is capable of producing something no one else wants. Impossible. So we need to revisit our intelligence, because clearly it is not up to the expectations of what you deserve to be called the living species. I have called the human species the Homo non-sapiens. We don't know what we're doing. And therefore we get stuck with waste. To me, it is very important that a second word is added, and that is ethics. I saw it coming up in the screen, ethics. And thank you for mentioning the word, Michelle. Ethics is key, because we are not applying ethics today. There is too much greenwashing. Too much blah, 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 blah. Too many beautiful pictures and nothing real behind. In 1988, when I proposed that the standard is 0 emissions, that standard is the same logic as 0 accidents. You cannot permit a few accidents per year, we all agree. Management has to focus on 0 accidents now. But when it comes to 0 emissions, we're talking about net zero in 2050. That's not serious. I'm sorry. When you know the Earth is going through a terrible climate change, and we're going to commit ourselves in 27 years, that is lack of ethics. Let me give you a comparison. Imagine that I am a thief. I'm stealing. And the police catches me and I'm put in front of a judge. And the judge asks me, explain yourself. And I'm saying, sorry, Your Honor, I confess I've been stealing. But I promise you, I'll be stealing less. What do you think the judge will tell you? Jail. No, sir. No, Your Honor, I will only steal in the weekends, not in the week. How serious do you take this proposal? It's not serious. But now you come with these corporations who tell you they will be polluting less. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, polluting less is polluting. Stealing less is stealing, polluting less is polluting. And then we give these companies environmental awards. This is a masquerade. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to speak and say what it is. Stealing is stealing, polluting is polluting. You can't pollute, you can't steal, period. And therefore we need to call upon a lot of innovation, not in the technology, but we need to change the business model. The business models that we have today is focusing on what is called the core business. If you're in the coffee, you're only supposed to do coffee. Yes, but my bean has a husk. And the coffee bushes, they must be pruned. Well, yes, prune your coffee bushes, take the wood, farm mushrooms. That's logical. I will not accept that my stay and my visit here has been of any use unless you massively start farming mushrooms on the prunings of your coffee bushes. Because there is malnutrition and hunger in the world. And by the way, you will get a better price for your mushrooms than you will ever get for your coffee. And you will not be cyclical according to the world market. When you are having a coffee bush and you're having your husks and you're making your coffee, as I showed yesterday, this jacket is 6% coffee. And the result is I don't have to use deodorant. I don't have to use perfume because the coffee naturally absorbs the odors of the body. That is what we call a functional textile. 5 years down the road, I want to see factories in India, Indonesia, Vietnam. I want to see factories where you're producing functional chemicals from coffee. That's the future. Why do you just focus on the coffee bean and only want to do the drink? Do you want to serve humanity or you want to serve your shareholders only? And if you want to serve humanity, then you will go beyond the bean. And I think I know why Mr. David Rennie didn't show up today. He was on the agenda. I've had discussions with David Rennie. I know the people in the industry. I had proposed to David Rennie that Nestlé, with the Nescafé, they have millions of tons of coffee waste. And I proposed that from their factory in South Africa, we would be able to produce millions of tons of mushrooms. How can you refuse? I said to David, you're in the food business, right? Nestle is chocolate, is coffee, is Kit Kat. You make a lot of products in the food business. And you know what he told me? Oh, but I'm only in the coffee business. I cannot decide for any other business. I'm not in the mushroom business. And Nestle as a board group decided 25 years ago that they're not going to do mushrooms. Although they could produce 1 million tons of mushrooms, providing healthy food without cholesterol to millions of people. So I went on a crusade. I don't give up. I went on a crusade, and guess what? Nestle in Zimbabwe is now buying the mushrooms from the 4,000 women farming the mushrooms on coffee waste, and Nestle buys the mushrooms to make a broth. And the broth they use for their instant soup they're selling. It's the biggest selling product in Africa for Nestle. Is not the coffee, is the instant soups. Now, instant soup provides instant nutrition. And we're convincing Nestle through practice on the ground in Zimbabwe that we can make the broth from the mushrooms that is grown on their coffee waste. Nestle is now shipping the coffee waste from South Africa to Zimbabwe, and we're farming. We're employing thousands of women, and we have a very simple deal with Nestle. You only buy the best mushrooms. Because the price that Nestle is prepared to pay after it was approved in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ivory Coast, through their research center of being the good quality with the right nutrition, afterwards they buy the best. That means that 20% of the mushrooms are now given to the women to fight malnutrition in Zimbabwe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I call sustainability. This is livelihood. And this is where we can use the power of marketing of a multinational like Nestle to get the soups out in order to get their waste reorganized. It's simple. Why don't we do it? Because too many of the people in the business have gotten an MBA, a Master of Business Administration. And we've all been brainwashed that we must focus on one thing: core business, core competence. No, livelihoods are not core business and core competence. Livelihoods is working in an ecosystem where the community and the family is central. And where fighting poverty and malnutrition must be your priority. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at this bottle, is it half empty or half full? I'm sorry, the question is wrong. Why? Because this bottle is full with water and air. And the problem is, if you're a core business person, you only look at the water and you forget to know that what you know, there is air in there. So the bottle is full with water and air. Look at the air. Try to live without air for 5 minutes, you will feel it. Now, this is the problem we're having with this core business strategy. It's too much focused on the bean. It's too much focused on the drink. We have to go beyond it. And we need to look at it in the ecosystem. When I'm at a coffee farm, the first thing I ask is not, are you shade grown? Because if you're not shade grown, to me, you cannot be ecological. Coffee farming is by definition shade grown. But shade grown is not my real worry. How many different trees are providing shade? My research, and I have 3,000 researchers at my availability, our 3,000 researchers came to the conclusion that in order to have a biodiversity in your coffee plantation with trees, you need minimum 72 varieties of trees. 72. So when I see someone saying I'm shade-grown coffee with one tree, forget about it. It's not sustainable. Why? Because we all know that the coffee needs pollination. And the pollination depends on the bees. And the bees in a monoculture of one type of tree with one type of coffee, with only 2 bloomings per year, the bees cannot thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, the bees is an integral part of the ecosystem. So when I'm in Latin America, I work only with the melipona. You know the melipona? The stingless bees, the tiny bees. The melipona is the tiny bee that doesn't sting. You can take the queen and put her in your pocket. She will travel with you, like the Incas did, like the Tairona did in Colombia, like the Kogi still do today. What happened to this little bee? Well, we had these MBAs who were calculating the efficiency of the melipona. The melipona also lives here in India. It's the Ghane. Indians, you know the Ghane? The Gano? You know you have them here as well. Why have they been eliminated? Because there is an obsession with productivity. And we look at productivity of the bees in the beehive. And the melipona is a small bee in small beehives, only producing 200, 300 grams of honey per year. But if you would calculate the productivity of the honey for the weight of the bee, it's the most productive bee in the world. Only we use the wrong statistics to prove the point. We're saying the beehive needs to have 20 kilograms. And I'm saying the little bee produces more honey. Now for meliponas, which is part of the biodiversity, which dramatically increase pollination, which we know increases your harvest, therefore you need to have 72 different trees in your forests. If you don't have them, the melipona can't survive. So your biodiversity helps you to have higher productivity. And instead of calculating your income per hectare, how many bags per hectare, stop calculating with a false yardstick. Calculate the total volume you can generate of revenues by having this biodiversity. Third point that I would like to raise is water. We know that an increasing number of coffee farms have to irrigate. That is not normal. Coffee is always very successful in regions where there is sufficient water for the coffee bush. Either you have taken a genetic variety that is not adapted to the ecosystem, and therefore you force it on the ecosystem by adding the water and the fertilizer. Or you study the varieties of coffee that are adapted to your ecosystem, and then you will have to perhaps supplement your water provision of the ecosystem by going into a partnership with a plant that is ideal to grow with coffee. And that plant is a grass, and that grass is called bamboo, la guadua. On my coffee farm, when I purchased the farm, I was told that we're drying out the land and therefore the farm was available for a penny. No more water. The cost of installation irrigation is too high. I refused to have an irrigation system because that means I'm stealing water from someone else. I don't do that. Ethically not defended. But what I did is the most steepest part of my land where the harvesting of the coffee is difficult, there I planted bamboo. And within 3 years, I have my own creek. Because bamboo brings water to the ecosystem. This is not a magic of the gods. This is by design of the ecosystem. Bamboo decreases the temperature on the land by at least 10 degrees. That's why the tigers like to sleep in bamboo, because it's cooler. Bamboo gives this incredible opportunity to reserve 10% of your coffee land to bamboo. Then you have abundance of water, clean water, produced on your farmland. And if you're a smallholder, you work together with 4, 5, 7 farmers. My piece of land was only 4.5 hectares, enough to create my own creek with my own bamboo, giving water all year round. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sustainability. We need to look at the sustainability through the eye of the ecosystem. When I mentioned about the garment and the coffee in here, that's a functional chemical. For that, you need nearly a national policy. You need large investors, because a factory will cost you $100 million. But in order to get your water production going on your farmland, it only costs you time and bamboo. But when you are growing the bamboo, don't only look at the bamboo because it's a beautiful grass. Bamboo, on top of that, is a beautiful product. In the year 2000, I constructed the largest bamboo building in modern history at the World Expo in Hanover. And there we had 6.4 million visitors adoring bamboo. The problem is today, in a country I love so much, Colombia, in Colombia, bamboo is still considered a tree. And therefore, you need a permit to cut it. I'm sorry, it's not a tree, it's a grass. I have not been able to change the law in Colombia for 35 years. I probably didn't pay the senators enough money and didn't have enough good arguments to convince them, but this is insanity. It's a wrong appreciation of a biodiversity of a plant. A plant is a grass you cut, it grows again. Bamboo, you cut, it grows again. A tree you cut, it doesn't grow again. We know the difference. But the law says you have to have a permit. As a result, our biggest bamboo projects today are in Vietnam. We have today in Vietnam, thanks to a national policy for bamboo, not only the coffee, we have the national policy for bamboo, and we generated 600,000 jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, 600,000 jobs by transforming the bamboo in value-added products. That's why I always carry my business cards in a bamboo holder. You have to generate value. You have to use what you have. But more importantly, and I will conclude with that, as Francesca Lavazza wrote to me in the endorsement for my book on coffee solutions, Francesca said the biggest problem is the next generation of coffee farmers. Many young people don't think it's worth spending a lifetime on a coffee farm. They rather cut down all the coffee bushes, put 2 cows, have a bit of milk, and live in the slums. That's how hard coffee farm life is today for many people. And it's therefore that my priority is not your branding and your marketing. We can work on that, that's easy. My main priority is the livelihood of the farmer. That must be a livelihood that is so good that the next generation dreams of being a farmer of coffee. And that coffee farmer will be doing bamboo. That coffee farmer will have all the kids playing with the bees that never sting. Because those little meliponas and ganos don't sting. They only bite you and you hardly feel it. We will be a coffee farm where the farmers work together and they have massive mushroom production. And the waste of the mushrooms will be used to feed the chickens. Ladies and gentlemen, the coffee farm will be a farm where actually Biodiversity is thriving because all farmers know they need at least 72 different trees in order to feed the bees the nectar so they can be around for the whole year. So their pollination levels go up dramatically. Ladies and gentlemen, it will also be a farm where will be drones used. We will have precision architecture, we have precision farming, and we will learn how to farm not only the bush up to 2 meters high. We will learn how to use the 75 meters of space above the coffee bush, because that is the ecosystem. It's a 3D farming. It's not per hectare, it's per volume around, because when you have coffee, you have an ecosystem. When the Spanish arrived in Latin America and they were colonizing the land, they didn't find in the areas of Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, they didn't find rainforests. The rainforest of the Orinoco and the rainforest of the Amazon was further south and further to the east. The Colombian highlands, the Ecuadorian and the Peruvian highlands were bamboo forests. Ladies and gentlemen, the Spanish came and they saw something they had never seen so massive before. But what they realized is that the bamboo left a tremendously fertile soil. If you leave bamboo for a life cycle, you will have 26% of carbon in your soil. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is? 26% carbon? That means your productivity beats whatever precision agriculture has ever invented today. Because no one imagines today a 26% concentration of carbon. And that is the reason why, while we have learned in our farming that we need to rotate the crop. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a coffee farmer, you are thinking that where you have planted, you will only do coffee for the rest of your life. That is not how ecosystems work. The marriage of the ecosystem is not just the trees. Where most of the coffee is farmed around the world, bamboo and coffee are brothers and sisters. And that is why we need to look at the family of the plants as much as the families of the trees and the families that live off the land. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I have woken up the entrepreneur in you. I hope I've woken up the child in you. Because a child, when it starts to play, doesn't say, let me write a business plan. Let me do the schedule for the day. A child thinks about it and feels that it's time to play. And even if the child doesn't have the tools, the child will still play. It'll invent the tools. Coffee is at that stage. If you do more of the same of what we've been doing for the past 250 years, I wish you good luck. I'm not going to be there. If you're ready to become an ecosystem entrepreneur, generate value and think about the livelihood both of the families and the plants and the insects, then I'll be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pauli. As always, mesmerizing, mesmerizing session. Good enough to, inspire all of us, not just for, our own good, but also for the next generation. We have had a fantastic, set of speakers, and we have done, good justice to the time. We have a lunch break following this, where we will get an opportunity to interact with all the speakers. It has been a pleasure and an excitement for me to host such a diverse panel. Just like I'm sure for all of you to have witnessed the knowledge, experience, and perspectives from the panel. Thank you, and hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. N. Malik. Before we leave the esteemed dignitaries, I would request Dr. M. Sendil Kumar, Director of Research, Coffee Board of India, to kindly come over and give mementos to all of them. All of you are heading towards lunch. Please note that there will be one session here at 2:30. There's another session at the seminar hall, and registered workshop delegates will have the session at the workshop hall 1. I would request Dr. Sendil to kindly give a memento to Mr. N. Malik, the chair of this particular session. Please have your lunch and do come back here quickly by 2:20. Or rather, 1:20. Yeah, the session will start at 2:30. I would request Dr. Sendil Kumar to kindly give a memento to Ms. Michelle Burns. Kindly come forward, ma'am. Kindly come forward. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ms. Michelle Burns, for your presentation. Dr. Harold Freidel will now receive the memento. Dr. Harold, CEO of Green Leadership. I'd request to kindly come forward, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. Next to the inspiring personality, Professor Gunter Pauli, the economist of Blue Economy. Kindly come forward, sir. Tremendous amount of inspiration instilled in the minds of all of them. Next to Mr. Mario Cerruti, the Chief Institutional Relations and Sustainability Officer, Lavazza Group. I would request Mr. Mario to kindly come forward. Also to Mr. Hernan Manson, the Head Inclusive Agribusiness Systems International Trade Center, ITC. Mr. Hernan, kindly come forward. And also finally to Mr. Andrea Di Marco, Project Manager, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Thank you very much. I would request all the panelists to kindly come forward, and along with Dr. Sendil Kumar, all of you will have a photograph. Yeah. All the panelists kindly come forward. Sir, all of you kindly come forward, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the photograph is being taken, please note that in the same hall, we have a session on financing mechanisms and opportunities for the coffee sector. And those who are interested in this session, coffee quality and specialty coffees, can move to Seminar Hall 1. The display boards are very, very clear. And in case of any difficulty, you can always talk to our colleagues from the event partner, Active. And also, there is one session, the registered delegates for the workshop can move to the workshop hall 1 at 2:30. There is everything brewing hot and cold. So enjoy your lunch and do head towards the hall which you are supposed to go at 2:20, 2:25, so that we'll start the session at 2:30. Thank you very much. Have a great time.